Hi, welcome to the learning channel Excel in Excel. Uh, this episode builds on what we have done in the previous episode. In the previous episode, we talked about lookup functions and we saw how we can use VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, or XLOOKUP to look up for certain values and get the desired result. However, when we ended the last episode, we had a scenario where we needed more than one lookup values to be considered to find out the desired result. And in that case, we could not possibly use VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, or XLOOKUP to give us the desired result. So here we are today with the next episode where we will talk about the match function. So when I said more lookup functions, actually match is the only other lookup function that we are looking today. But match is pretty often used with a function called index. And so many people commonly call them as match index functions. However, we would still continue using VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP in today's session too. So without much ado, let's look at what's in store today and how we are going to use that. So when we are looking at the match function, and as we said, we will be using an index function and also we'll be using VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP function. So let us start with a scenario for that. So what is the scenario in which we would like to work on them? So as you can see here, what I have done is I have put in the syntax of the match and the index function. So let's try to understand how we use them. So what is the problem today that we are answering? So in this part, in this green part here, we have certain transactions which have been done, specifically about the coffee. So we have transaction number, we have a description, which can be the classic black roast coffee. Both of them are exactly the same. However, if we look at the pack, one is a jar pack and the other one comes in a pouch. Similarly, we would have other list of coffees. Some of them might come in the jar and some of might come in the pouch. The requirement is that we would need to figure out what is the rate of that particular coffee. Now, to find out the rate of this particular coffee, we have a price listing below. So here in the price list here, as we can see, the description is there, the price for the jar and the price for the pouch is given. So to find out the exact price here, we would typically need to look into both the description as well as the pack. So the problem is that given this description and given this jar, that is the coffee and the jar, description and the pack, what is the rate? Now to figure out that rate, what we'll have to do is we'll have to look into this table, and as we can see, because it is this particular coffee and because it is a jar, the price would be 467. The question is, how do you get the 467 here using certain Excel functions? So what we will do is we'll look at this particular table. So as you can see, I had marked in this table, and in this table, this 467 appears in row number 2 and column number 2. So if we can figure out this row number 2 and column number 2, then from this lookup table or the lookup array, I should be able to extract this 467. This we can do it using the index function. So in the index function, what happens if we have if we give an array, like for example the blue rectangle that we have, if we give the row number and if we give the column number, that is 2 comma 2, we should be able to get that 467. But the question is, how do you get this 2 and this 2? How do you get the row number and how do you get the column number? For that, what we are going to do is we would look at this first, the description, and we will look at this lookup array 1 that I have called here. So in this lookup array 1, what we will do is we will search for the Nescafe Classic Black Roast Instant Coffee 100 gram. Now that would come in the second position. Now we could have, as you can see, as you can remember, we would have used a VLOOKUP to search on this. But if you see, what VLOOKUP results is a value. But in this case, I don't need the value, I need the position. I need the position in which this particular description appears. And therefore, I can't use a VLOOKUP if I am looking for the position of the value and not the value per se. And for that, I will be using a match function. So in a match function, it's similar to a VLOOKUP function. So we have a lookup value, we have a lookup array, or we have a lookup table, and we have a match type. In this case, match type is 0 for an exact match, and there is -1 and +1 values. That means less than or greater than. But we are working with exact match. So what we are going to do is that we are going to use a match function in this lookup array 1, and in this lookup array 1, we will try to find the exact match for this lookup value 1, which is Nescafe Classic Black Roast Instant Coffee 100 gram. Now that's what we propose to do. So using this match, using this as the lookup value, using this as the lookup array, we would be able to get the result as 2, because in this thing the Nescafe Classic Black Roast Instant Coffee appears in the second position. So I want to repeat what I had just said. If we had used a VLOOKUP, we would be able to get the value in a particular position. We would get the value, but I did not need the value here. I needed the position. Why I needed the position? Because if I know the position, then I can use the index function and I can figure out what is the value exactly at that position. So now I have found the row number. As you can see, the row number 2 has already been discovered. Now the question comes to find out what is the column number. So I need the column number also as 2. So what I do is I will now look at the lookup value 2. And this lookup value 2, I am looking at the lookup array 2. So in the lookup array 2, as you can see, I have only considered this row, right? In this row. I could have also considered, I could have also included the description in this lookup array 2, but in this case I didn't. So therefore, when I use a match this time, right? When I use a match this time and I use this lookup value 2 to look up in the match in this lookup array, that is one row here with jar and pouch, 2 cells, I'll get the result as 1, because in this lookup array, it is the first cell in which jar is appearing. Mind you, I was looking at row number 2 and column number 2. I got the row number 2 here, but here I am getting only 1. If I had selected description also in this green rectangle, that means if my lookup array contained description, jar and pouch, then of course jar would have appeared in position number 2. But sometimes there can be reasons where we may not be able to select all the 3 columns, as we had selected only 2 here. So in that case, it's just a matter of adding this value of 1 to the final result. Therefore, what we are having is, if we are using the index function now, this array, this blue array is our array from where we want to extract this one, which is at row 2, column 2. So the position of the row 2 we have already got from this match out here, and the position of the column 2 we have got the position as 1 from this match, and we just add up 1. So do note that if instead of jar it was a pouch, the match would have returned a 2, and 2 plus 1 would have resulted in a 3. So in case of index, we would return in the array 2 comma 3, which would have been this 443, and we would have got the correct result. So let's move to Excel and let's see how that can be done. So now I have to figure out what is the rate. Okay, I have to figure out what is the rate. And so what we are going to do here is this. We are going to use a match, as we remember, this particular value is found, this is the 467 that we are looking at, and therefore if we do a match and my lookup value is this is my lookup value, and my lookup table is this. Let's make it absolute because we will copy it for the others, but the lookup table must be same. Sorry, the lookup table is this up to this, and then let me make it absolute. And then as you can see, 0 is for an exact match, and therefore I get the position 2. Sorry, this rupee symbol has come because it was put in the currency symbol. So let's put the general format. Now therefore we got the 2. That is the position of the row. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to use the index function. Or okay, let me show you the match first separately. So this match gave me the position of the row. I'll have to write another match so that I can figure out the second lookup value, the jar, and this I'm looking up here as I said, and again let me make it absolute, and again an exact match. So this gives me the 1 again, as we had talked about. So we have got this 2, we have got this 1. Now we need to put it into a single formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a single formula, index. This is my lookup table for the index, right? And let's make it absolute. And then this match that we had given, that gives me the position of the row here, and for the position of the column, right? The position of the column, I had already written the formula here, but let me write it again. Match, this is the value of jar, right? This is the value, and my lookup table was this, right? That is the lookup array. We make it absolute, and then again we need an exact match, so there is a 0, and therefore as you can see in this formula what we had done, we had used an index, right? We had used an index. The index, first we had given this entire lookup table, which in the previous screen I had put as the blue box. Then we had the match, which in the previous screen I had talked about the match, which I had shown in the green color, and finally I have this match. Now if we take this, here we have we got a wrong value, because what we got the same value. That means when I gave this formula, it matched the jar, it matched the Nescafe Classic Black Roast Coffee in this table, and what it returned me the value on the first column itself, because when we use this match, remember the second match that, sorry, what had happened? Yeah, the second match that we had used here, right? The second match that we had used here, this was returning me 1. So I needed to add 1 more to that, as I had explained in the previous screen, and therefore here is the result, and there we get our 467. And similarly, we can now drag it around and we'll get for all of them. So for example, let's say brew instant aromatic coffee from South Indian plantation jar, it is this, and therefore as you can see for the jar it is 303 rupees, and that 303 has come in here. So therefore what happens is this, as you can see, what we had been able to do is we had been able to use the formula, which is match. So one match we have used to figure out where does Nescafe Classic Black or whatever we are searching for, wherever the description appears. The second match we have figured out to find out where the jar or pouch appears, and using the index, giving the position of the row which we found from the first match, and giving the position of the column which we found the second match, adding 1 to that, we are going to get the value. I hope we understand what we have just done. What I have just done is whatever I had explained in the previous screen, I have just implemented that in Excel. Here, of course, I had already put up a formula before, which was the rate multiplied by the number of units, and therefore, as you can see, this fills up directly. So, this is an illustration of how we use the match and index together. So, going back to the previous slides, what we have basically done therefore is we use the index function, and after using the index function, what we have done is we have figured out the array, which of course we already knew, and beyond that we figured out what is the row and what is the column from where we are going to extract the value. Now let's do it in another way, in which I am not going to use an index function. Instead, I am going to use a VLOOKUP along with the match. So the problem of course remains the same. So again, we want to figure out what will be the rate, but this time, as I said, we will not be using the index function. So it is another way of handling this out. So what we can do is to extract this value, we will use a VLOOKUP, and as you know, in a VLOOKUP we need a lookup value, we need a lookup table, we need the column index, we need the range lookup, which is true or false. So in this VLOOKUP, of course, since we are going for an exact match, I have already put a false out here. Now only thing that I have to do is to fill up these 3 values here. So this is the lookup value. So we look up for this value in this table. So therefore, this is the lookup value I'll put up. Then the range of the lookup, of course we know it, it will be this, and therefore this is the range we are going to put in. So therefore, if we are looking for this lookup value Nescafe Classic Black Roast Instant Coffee, and we are searching it here, it will be found in this row, that is the second row of the table lookup. However, the question is, how do I know which column to return? I mean, what is the column index? Is the column index this 2 or the column index this 3, which depends on the pack, and therefore for this we would have to use a match. We can't use a lookup V or H because they return a value, and I need a position out here, because position is what I'm interested in here. So therefore we use this lookup array, and now as you can see, I've used description. In the previous case, I showed you what happens if I take only 2, because as I said, there can be sometimes cases where we cannot take all of them. We have to restrict ourselves to some smaller range. One example we will see later in the same video. So we take this lookup array, and therefore we use a match, and using a match we take this pack now, which is our lookup value 2. So we look up this value 2 in this lookup array 2, and naturally therefore once we look up this in this array, the result that will come from here would be actually, this is the first position, this is the second position, this is the third position. Now jar is found in the second position, so the result will be a 2, and therefore now as I said, we already had VLOOKUP had already, if VLOOKUP works, it would already find that this is in the second row, but the question was which column to return. Because it is a jar, the second column will be returned. If it was the pouch, then by the same logic, this match would have resulted in a 3, because pouch would have been found in first, second and third. So pouch would have been found in a third position, and therefore it would have returned a 3. So the third column would have been returned. And let me show you how the implementation of what I have exactly done now. So here what I am going to do is that, again, I am going to write a VLOOKUP function, and as I said, this is my lookup value, and this entire thing is going to be my lookup table. Let me make it absolute because I'm going to copy this down, and then it asks me the column index number. But as I said, I don't know from which column I'm going to take the data, whether I'm going to take from the jar column or whether I'm going to take the pouch column. It will depend based on the value of the pack, and therefore what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a match, right? I'm going to use a match, and I'll pass this as my lookup value, in this case the jar, and this is my lookup array. Now I'll make it absolute. So that's my lookup array. So in this lookup array, I'm looking for jar, which would return me position number 2, because the first cell is description, second cell is jar, third cell is pouch. I'm looking for a jar here, and therefore it will return me 2. And therefore we are looking for an exact match. And finally, to end up the VLOOKUP, we are looking for an exact match, so we are giving a false. So just notice once more what I have done. I have done a VLOOKUP. What am I looking up for? I'm looking up for the description. Where am I looking up for? I'm looking up for in this entire table, and therefore if I'm looking for Nescafe Classic Black Roast Instant Coffee 100 gram, I find it in this position in the row number 2. But the question is, what I do not know, because jar or pouch may vary in the pack. So what I don't know is which column to return. That means what will be my column index. Therefore, what I do is I use a match to figure out the column index. So in the match, we are passing the jar as the lookup value, and we are taking this description jar and pouch, this single row, as the lookup array. And when we do an exact match, because the value currently is jar, it will give me the position 2, because that is the second cell in this range, and therefore I now know what is the position, what is the column index for VLOOKUP. And since I am looking for an exact match, I give it a false, and therefore we are done. And again, like before, I can just copy it down. So the same problem that is there, I had done once using the index function. So we had done an index. So just to bring you here, we had done an index. We use 2 matches to find out the position of the row, to find out the position of the column, and once we know the position of the row and column, we use this index to extract that value from that 2-dimensional table. In the current case, we had used it through VLOOKUP, where we had found the position of the row basically using a VLOOKUP, but for the column index, we had used a match to figure out the value from which column should be returned. So we can extend it even with an HLOOKUP for that matter. If I want to do it with an HLOOKUP, what I can do is horizontal lookup. In that case, this will be the lookup values. So in this case, what I can do is, last time when I used a VLOOKUP, I looked up this way, and therefore I looked up for the description. But if I am looking for an HLOOKUP, I'll have to look up this way. Therefore, I'll have to look up for the jar. That means the pack. Because if I'm looking horizontally, I'm only getting the pack. While if I'm looking vertically, I'm getting the description. That's why in VLOOKUP, I pass the description as the lookup value. But if I'm doing a HLOOKUP, I'll have to pass pack as the lookup value. So let's do that. So I'll use an HLOOKUP. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to look up for the pack, that is jar in this case. And what is my lookup table? This entire thing is my lookup table. Let me make it absolute. But then again, I'm stuck. What will be my row number to return? Which row index do I return? So if it is in this particular case, in this particular row that we are looking for, Nescafe Classic Black Roast Instant Coffee 100 gram is the description. In that case, the row index must be 2. But if it was a different product, the row index might be 3 or might be 4 or might be 5, might be 6, might be 7. And I don't know this at this point. And therefore, let's use the match again. And this time, this is what we are finding out from the match is the value of the row. And therefore, let's pass the description as the lookup value. And this is my lookup table. Make it absolute. And then you want an exact match. So here we are. Now therefore, in this case, what will this match B3, this particular range, comma 0 return? It will return me the value 2 because the description matches this particular description of the coffee. So therefore, as we can see now HLOOKUP, it looks for the jar. So it finds out here, right? It finds out here. Now the question is from which row the value will be returned. But since this match would return me a 2, it will return from the second row. That is 467. That's what we are looking for. And since we are looking for an exact match, we will complete the HLOOKUP with a false. And therefore, as you can see, I've got this 467 back. And again, if I drag it down all the way, I have the result. Right? So, when we are looking at two lookup values, right? So, if there is a situation and we end up with a scenario that we would need to use two lookup values, in that case we can use match with an index. In that case, of course, we will use two match and an index, or we can use a VLOOKUP and a match, or we can use an HLOOKUP and a match and get our job done. Let's look at another challenge currently. Let's say we are talking of hotel bookings, and this booking is done pretty in advance. So I have these 4 guests who would like to book rooms in my hotel. So the first person, Judhish here, he wants a single deluxe. Kumar Jain wants a single regular. Sayak Matthews wants a junior suite, and Avijit Tiwari also wants a junior suite. Now, the point is, I have to figure out what is the rate, right? I have to figure out what is the rate on which they will be charged. The date of arrival is known. But as you are aware, the hotel rates are seasonal. So depending on given seasons, the hotel rate changes. So therefore, to figure this out, I can find it out from this table. This is my rate chart. So in the rate chart, as you can see, we have, by the way, these bookings are starting from 1st June 24. So I'm opening now the booking from 1st June 24 till about, let's say, 1st June 25. Now, from 1st June 24 till before 1st September 24, a single regular tariff per night is rupees 6,000. However, from 1st September till 30th November, that is a day before the 1st December, the rate for the room is 7,000. But from 1st December, we are at the peak of the season because of the Christmas and the winter holidays. So at that point of time, the room rent up to end of February is charged at 9,000. And from 1st of March, it comes down to 7,000. Now the point here is that I want to figure out the rate. Again, as you can see, this time also we have two values to look at. The two lookup values are there. One, of course, what is the accommodation, and one, what is the date of arrival. One assumption that we are making here is that the rates are decided on the date of arrival. So if I am arriving on, let's say, 30th of November, the November rate will apply to me and not the December rate. Now to do this, you notice one thing, that this particular date, that is 17/1/25, is not here at all. Or for that matter, 5/9/24 is also not here, and 11/12/2024 is also not here. So none of the dates that we are talking of here, except for, of course, this one, 1st March 25, which is here. 1st March 2025 is here. But apart from that, these dates are not here. But if you remember from two sessions back, we mentioned that dates are actually values that are stored inside. So they are numbers. So each of these dates that we see here and each of these dates that we see here, they are numbers stored as the number of days passed since 1st January 1900. And therefore, in the VLOOKUP last or in the HLOOKUP last that we saw, we used an exact match. Because it is a number, we are going to use an approximate match. And as you can see, these numbers will be in ascending order. So, as these numbers, that is the dates, are in ascending order in a horizontal fashion, so I can only use HLOOKUP in this lookup table. So, in this lookup table, what we are trying to do is that we would use an approximate match, as we said, and use this HLOOKUP. And as we know, in the HLOOKUP, first is the lookup value. Lookup table, of course, we had already filled up in the formula. Then, of course, we need the row index, and finally the range lookup. Now, in this case, of course, we are doing an approximate match, so the range lookup will be true. As far as the lookup value is concerned, of course, it is this, the date that we are looking for. See, the dates are a number, and these numbers are in the first row here of my lookup table, and therefore I'm going to use this as the lookup value for each lookup. So what happens now is this, that look at this date. This is 17th January 25. So the question will be asked again, as we had discussed in the previous episode, that when HLOOKUP will work, it will ask this question: is 1st June 24 greater than 17 January 25? The answer is no. So the second question will be asked: is 1st September 24 greater than 17 January 25? No. Next question: is 1st December 24 greater than 17th January 25? No. Then it comes to this last cell here, the last column, that is 1st March 25 greater than 17th January 25? The answer is yes, and therefore it will come back to the previous column and return a value from this column. But the question is, from this column, which value? Now that value will be decided by the accommodation that one takes. So if it is a single regular, it will be 9,000. If it is single deluxe, it will be 11,000. If it is double regular, it will be 13,000, and so on. Therefore, the question is, which row, the row index that we are talking of, what is the row index that we are interested in? So the row index in this case, of course, because it is single deluxe, the row index would have been 3. 1, 2, 3. So first row, of course, is the lookup values. Second row, third row. So third row has the value for the single deluxe. But how do I find that third? How do I know? Because it is a function of this single deluxe, what we are going to do is we are going to use a match function. Now using this match function, we are going to take the lookup value 2 in this match function, and then we will use a lookup array. 0, of course, we are wanting for an exact match. But what is the lookup array? This is the lookup array, and as you see, this lookup array results in a value 3 out here. Why? Because single deluxe is in this array, it is in the third position. So it's this time the lookup array is this way, so it's one column, as I had said before. In a match, the lookup array must be either a single row or a single column. So in this single column, it finds single deluxe in the third position, and therefore the match returns the position 3, and therefore the the row index here, we can use this match, which is 3, and which is correct. As you see, we said this is the value we found out, this is the column that we are interested in. So 1, 2, 3, 11,000, that is the tariff to be charged per night for 17th January 25 onwards for a single deluxe. And as we are doing an approximate match, naturally this is going to be true. So let's now see how we can handle this out in Excel. So this is our hotel booking data set. While the hotel rates, I have put them in a separate sheet this time. So let's go into this. We are going to calculate the rate. So the rate will be, as we had done with before, it will be an HLOOKUP. We'll look for this date, right? We'll look for this date, and we'll look for this date in this range. Mind you, I couldn't have taken this range, the full range, because in that case, in the first row, I don't only have numbers in ascending order. So therefore, I had to restrict myself to leave out the accommodation so that the first row has numbers. Again, dates are actually numbers. So first row has the numbers stored in the ascending order. So let's make it absolute. Right. So let's make that absolute. Then we need to know which is the row index for this HLOOKUP. Now to do that, we'll go back here and we will give a match. Sorry, the moment I got it, the hotel book came in, which is not required. So here is a match. So I'll do a match and I'll pass the accommodation, right? I'll pass the accommodation value as the lookup value for the match. And where are we looking up for? We are looking it up for in this column. Again, just to reiterate, whenever we do a match, the lookup array is a single dimensional column or a row. So in this case, it's a column. We'll make it absolute. And yes, we need an exact match. So that's a 0, right? So we need an exact match, that's a 0. And finally, because we are looking for a approximate match, so let's select true there. And therefore, if we come back to the previous one, what is that? Yeah, so I haven't given the bracket. Excel realized that this bracket was missing and it has put the bracket automatically. So I am getting the rate as 11,000. Now for a single deluxe for a date in January 25, is 11,000 justified? Let's look at the hotel rate just to cross check that what we are saying is correct. The rate from 1st December till end of February is given in this column, and we are looking at a single deluxe, and see single deluxe here, it's an 11,000. So this is the value that it has returned to me. And therefore, now if we wish, we can drag it, we'll get all the values, and the amount will of course be the number of nights multiplied by the rate, and there we are. If we want to put the currency symbol, just a bit of cosmetic treatment, there we are. So that's what we have done. So just look at the formula once again, what we have done. The formula that we have used is, we have used an HLOOKUP, we had given the date, we had gone into this thing, we checked for the dates, we did an approximate match, figured out which column the results would actually be in, right? Which column the results would actually be in. But then to figure out what will be the row index from where the value would be returned, we used a match. We took the room type, that is the accommodation, and in this place we searched out where that appears, which gives me the row number, and that row number we had put it into this HLOOKUP, and finally we gave it true because it was a approximate match. So therefore we can use, when we have more than one lookup values, or let me make it specific, when we have two lookup values, we HLOOKUP or VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP alone will not suffice. So we need to get another function involved. So either we can do it with match and indexes, as we had seen. If we do a match and index for two lookup values, you will have two matches and one index, two match and one index function. However, you can also use a VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP. You can also use a VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP to extract the two lookup values. Extract the result based on those two lookup values. However, if you notice one thing, the last case that we had done, instead of using a match index, an HLOOKUP along with an index makes the job much easier, because at that point what we took advantage of is the approximate match of HLOOKUP. So thank you once again for your interest in the channel, and as always, keep learning and excel in Excel till we meet again. Thank you. Bye bye.